The rain was relentless, drumming against the windshield of my car as I drove down the desolate stretch of highway. The night was pitch black, the only illumination coming from my headlights slicing through the downpour. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as I navigated the slick road, my heart racing with every distant clap of thunder. Up ahead, I saw a figure standing on the side of the road. A hitchhiker. In this storm? My instinct was to keep driving, but a pang of guilt tugged at me. What if they were stranded? I hit the brakes and pulled over onto the shoulder. The moment I opened the door, a chilling wind swept into the car, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something indescribable, like a whisper of dread. The hitchhiker was a young woman, her soaked clothes clinging to her frame, and her hair plastered to her face. "Hey, need a ride?" I called out, trying to be heard over the rain. She turned to me and I saw her eyes, deep pools of darkness that seemed to hold secrets beyond comprehension. "Thank you," she said in a voice that was as soft as the rain itself. I offered her a weary smile, my unease growing despite my efforts to dismiss it. She climbed into the passenger seat, water droplets cascading from her onto the car's interior. "Rough night for a drive," she remarked, her voice carrying an eerie calmness. "Yeah, it's pretty nasty out there," I replied, glancing at her out of the corner of my eye. As I continued driving, a heavy silence settled between us, punctuated only by the rhythmic thumping of rain on the roof. I stole occasional glances at the hitchhiker, her gaze fixed on the road ahead, as if she was lost in thought. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to break the tension. She turned to me, her expression inscrutable. "Does it matter?" I swallowed hard, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "I suppose not," I muttered. The miles passed in silence, the darkness outside seeming to press in on us from all sides. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this situation, about her. Her presence was like a shadow, both eerie and intriguing, and I found myself simultaneously drawn to her and repelled by her strangeness. "Can you pull over for a moment?" she asked suddenly. I glanced at her, surprised by the request. "Sure, what's up?" "I just need a moment to myself," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. I pulled onto the shoulder once again, the rain pounding on the roof with a deafening intensity. She stepped out of the car, her silhouette illuminated by the faint glow of my headlights. She stood there, facing away from me, her form a stark contrast to the surrounding darkness. Minutes ticked by, the tension growing with each passing second. I was about to call out to her when I noticed something strange. Her figure seemed to be fading, as if being swallowed by the rain. "Hey, are you all right?" I called, my heart pounding. No response. I leaped out of the car and ran towards her, my footsteps splashing through puddles. But by the time I reached the spot where she had been standing, she was gone, as if she had never been there at all. The rain-soaked road was empty, the only evidence of her presence being the lingering unease in the air. My heart raced, panic clawing at my chest. Had she been a ghost? A figment of my imagination? The rain continued to pour, as relentless as my racing thoughts. I got back in the car and drove on, the feeling of unease growing stronger with each passing mile. The image of the hitchhiker fading into the rain haunted my thoughts, leaving me with a sense of dread that I couldn't shake. Hours later, as the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds, I finally reached a gas station. I pulled over and stumbled inside, my clothes soaked and my nerves frayed. "Are you all right?" the attendant asked, concern etched on his face. I nodded, trying to steady my trembling hands. I picked up a hitchhiker back on the highway, but she disappeared in the rain." The attendant's expression darkened, and he exchanged a knowing look with another employee. "You're not the first to experience something like this," he said, his voice hushed. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart sinking. He leaned in, his voice barely audible over the hum of the fluorescent lights. "Legend has it that a hitchhiker, a young woman, haunts that stretch of highway. She appears on stormy nights, and those who pick her up are never the same. Some say she's a lost soul, searching for something she can never find." My blood ran cold as his words sank in. The hitchhiker wasn't just a random encounter. It was a haunting, a tale whispered in hushed tones by those who knew the truth. As I left the gas station, the memory of the disappearing hitchhiker and the legend she embodied lingered like a ghostly presence. The rain had finally stopped, and the world seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. But in my heart, I knew that some mysteries were never meant to be understood. Some encounters were better left unexplored. And as I drove away, the road ahead stretching into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that the vanishing hitchhiker had left an indelible mark on my soul, one that would haunt me for the rest of my days. The rain was relentless, pounding against the windshield like a barrage of tiny fists. My wipers struggled to keep up, leaving my view of the desolate road distorted and uncertain. I clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as I navigated through the stormy night. The hum of the engine was my only company, and the occasional flash of lightning cast eerie shadows on the road ahead. I was driving through a remote stretch of highway, far from any signs of civilization. The gas gauge hovered ominously above empty, my heart racing with each passing mile. Just when I was beginning to worry that I might be stranded, I saw a figure on the side of the road, a hitchhiker. At first, I hesitated. Picking up a stranger in the middle of nowhere was a risky proposition, but guilt gnawed at me, the thought of leaving someone out in this storm tugging at my conscience. With a reluctant sigh, I pulled over, the sound of raindrops pinging against the roof like a haunting melody. The hitchhiker approached my car, their face obscured by the hood of their tattered jacket. As they climbed into the passenger seat, a cold draft swept through the car, sending a shiver down my spine. I offered a polite smile, my voice quivering as I spoke. "Need a ride?" They nodded silently, water dripping from their hood onto the floor mat. I noticed that they were unusually tall, their body language tense and guarded. With a cautious glance, I pulled back onto the road, the rain still coming down in torrents. For a while, the only sound was the rhythmic patter of raindrops against the roof. I stole occasional glances at the hitchhiker, trying to decipher something about them. Their features remained hidden in the shadows, an enigma that left me unsettled. "Where are you headed?" I finally asked, my voice trembling slightly. No response. They simply continued to stare out the window, as if lost in thought, or lost in something else entirely. I cleared my throat, the silence growing more suffocating with each passing moment. As I stole another glance, a flash of lightning illuminated their face, revealing pale, almost translucent skin and eyes that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. I shivered, my grip on the steering wheel tightening. "My name's Alex," I offered, hoping to break the ice. Still no response. The minutes stretched on, the weight of the silence growing heavier. The road seemed to stretch endlessly ahead, a desolate ribbon disappearing into the unknown. With each mile, my anxiety intensified. There was something undeniably strange about this hitchhiker, something that sent chills down my spine. The rain began to taper off, leaving a thick fog in its wake. My visibility was further reduced, and I slowed down to navigate the increasingly treacherous conditions. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road, another hitchhiker. I hit the brakes hard, my heart racing. As the car screeched to a halt, I looked at the newcomer through the windshield. They were just as enigmatic as the first, their hood pulled low over their face. My pulse quickened, a sense of unease settling over me like a suffocating blanket. "They need a ride too," the first hitchhiker finally spoke, their voice barely audible over the sound of rain. I glanced between the two figures, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. How had the second hitchhiker appeared out of thin air? And why did the first one seem to know their intentions? I can't take any more passengers," I stammered, my voice trembling. "They insist," the first hitchhiker replied, their tone taking on a strange, almost hypnotic quality. Panic surged through me, and without another word, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and accelerated past them. The road ahead was a blur of fog and uncertainty, the visibility nearly non-existent. My heart pounded in my chest, the sound reverberating like a drumbeat of impending doom. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that the hitchhikers were still with me, their silent presence lurking in the shadows of the car. The minutes turned into an eternity, each passing second a torturous reminder of my vulnerability. And then, as if materializing from thin air, they were back, both of them. The first hitchhiker turned to me, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "You can't escape us," they whispered, their words a chilling promise. With a scream, I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the car skidded to a halt. I threw open the door and bolted into the rain-soaked night, the hitchhiker's laughter echoing in my ears. Adrenaline fueled my every step as I ran, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I never looked back, never stopped until I reached the nearest gas station, where I gasped for breath, my mind reeling with the surreal horror of what had just transpired. The hitchhikers were gone, lost to the storm and the darkness. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that they're still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting traveler. And when the rain falls and the fog rolls in, I remember the chilling whisper of their promise, that some encounters are not meant to be forgotten, that some passengers are not meant to be left behind.